G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder. Honestly, in the making of this video, or rather the gathering of footage, I've just struggled to get something that I think is worth showing. Honestly, I feel like this might be the most, exciting game, because the other games that I've gotten are kind of boring. Maybe not so much in the volume of kills, but in general, the action that the Centurion Action X or Action 10 sees, it's not really that amazing, to be honest. It is a good... I don't know. I still don't know whether or not I think this tank is a good tank or a bad tank. It seems mediocre. And I'll get to that in a minute. But first, I just want to thank everyone for all the support that everyone's given me over the past few weeks. I've noticed that in general, and I think this is across the board for every other YouTuber as well, the general interest in War Thunder seems to have dropped off a cliff, to be honest. And to those of you who are still watching, I'd like to thank you, because you guys keep me going. Not monetarily, because, YouTube doesn't really make enough for me anyway monetarily for it to mean anything. But just, I can't help getting a kick out of comments and likes and discussion and seeing progress. And so you guys are the ones that keep that going. So thank you. Anyway, the Action 10. Honestly, I had anticipated this tank for a long time. And from what I was told about it, it was supposed to be basically a Centurion with almost Chieftain-like armor. And it would sit somewhere at 7.7, and it would have an L7. Maybe it would have Dart. But lo and behold, we have an Action 10 with a 20-pounder. And as far as I'm aware, to all I know, I don't actually know what gun it was fitted with. There was one prototype that was fitted with this gun, and I'm guessing if Gaijin have their sources correct, it is in fact the not the L7, the 20-pounder. Now, the 20-pounder in War Thunder is, for me, a frustrating gun, because it's challenging. It doesn't really have the penetration that means that you can so-called lol pen things like King Tigers. It certainly can put to shame things like IS-2s, and to some extent IS-3s. You're going to start struggling with the IS-6 and the IS-4 though. But that's okay, because you won't see them terribly often. This thing sits at 6.7. The problem I find with the Centurion Action 10 is that the gun doesn't do enough post-pen. And you might be thinking, yeah, that's because you're using a sub-caliber shell. But for me, the sub-caliber shell is the one that does the most work. I can't find another... the solid shot has got the damage output, but I just don't find the penetration that I need with that higher caliber, or with the higher caliber shell. You can see that I've managed to permafire, or I am racked to the IS-2, and now I've set a nice little, I've disabled this King Tiger here. I put one into the lower front plate and to the turn turret. Now, your biggest enemy will be two things. The Panther 2, because it has mobility over you and can and will one-shot you. And the King Tiger, which will bounce a lot of armor. You can shoot the upper front plate of the King Tiger, but you have to be either extremely close or in an elevated position. So it's not really that practical. I do like the Centurion Action 10 though. I think it's a well-balanced tank. Although it probably wouldn't hurt to see it go to 6.3, because the armor itself, the armor that it is supposedly so famous for, doesn't really make that much of a difference. You can pen it with a T-34-85, but on the flip side, the gun is extremely punchy and could potentially ruin things like Tiger 1s, although the Tiger 1 does have a fairly strong answer back with the 88. Even the lower Panzer shell is somewhat effective. Now you can see I've taken the monument spot, and the monument spot is probably the best bit on Normandy to control the town square, especially if you come in from this side, where you have pretty much a clear rain on the sea wall, you have a clear rain on the street, and also on the little connector area, or the corner of the town square. So you can pretty much grab anyone who approaches to the church. You also have the main sort of connector road, the one that leads into the town square. You can lock that down as well, And that's why I'm facing the south. I'm not going to face my tank towards the, they'll show the weakest spot of the armor, show the engine bay, stuff like that, to things that are down there on the south road. I am trying to I guess, assert some dominance over this area, and it's not really that ideal for doing that, to be honest. I think a T-29 or a T-34, like my teammate here, who I need to help, I'm going to take out the gunner and I believe it was the gunner. No, I just shoot into some empty space, which is another problem. You find that when you face German tanks, again, the spacing will kill you. It's kind of like the Centurion Mark 10, and in fact, any other sub-caliber shell. The German heavy tanks, like the King Tiger, the Maus, the the Jagdtiger, and the Panther II, to some extent, and even the Panthers, will use that spacing to their advantage. And it's just by default that your guns will not really be able to one-shot anything unless they either penetrate straight through the front, which is, especially with King Tigers and Jagdtigers, unlikely, or you hit an ammo rack. And hitting an ammo rack is difficult with a lot of these tanks, especially in some cases. If a King Tiger is wiggling its turret, it's difficult to just punch that shell all the way through, and you won't always get that neat little shot that just goes straight through the turret, kind of like the American shells do, because they don't, I guess, shrapnel or spall as much, if you will. I will say I do like this tank, but I do feel like it could use a little bit of love. I think I feel like those ammo racks on the bottom, you could see me using the X-ray view there in game. You can see it has some floor ammunition racks, and I don't understand why they're not the first stage. That would help a lot against things like Heat of Fess and stuff that simply punches through the upper front plate. It would increase the survivability. I think those shells on the floor should be the first or second stage ammunition racks rather than the one at the front. And I think that is a little bit of an error upon Gaijin. The other thing that I find is that the turret is surprisingly weak. And the weak spots that you would expect are just not there. If you compare this tank and its turrets to the FV4202, the FV4202's major weak spot is on the top of the turret, on what I like to call the turret forehead. The little bit that slopes up, and then you get the roof right behind it. That is actually the strongest point on the turret for this tank. It has something like a 98% chance of a ricochet, so you're pretty much never going to pen that with a long 88 unless you're looking down at the tank. On the other hand, on the Centurions and the FV4202, that is the quintessential weak spot. If you shoot that with a long 88 or an 85 or a 122 or a 100 or a 105 Hesh, you will pen and you will kill it, 100%. Even Hesh, I'm pretty sure. But honestly, for 6,000 G, I don't think this tank is worth it. Not for 6,000. It's nothing that I would... I don't know. I don't feel like I would spend the money on it in its current state. I think if one little change were to happen to this tank, it would be really, really good. And perhaps one of the 6.7 premiums. I think if it got a rate of fire increase, it would be a lot better. And that is simply because the armor does not cut it on this tank. If it was the gun that was the main feature of this tank, apart from its uniqueness, I mean, the gun is good as it is. But if, I guess, it just had maybe a 0.5 second quicker reload, it would have a little bit more firepower that would sort of set it apart from the FV4202. It certainly wouldn't be better, because it wouldn't be able to withstand the shots. But if you perhaps, like this King Tiger, for example, I shoot just a little bit too low, and whilst that is definitely my fault, I should have shot for the ammo rack, or I should have shot for, I guess, the driver, and I bugger it up here again, shooting for the turret ring and the gunner. It is difficult to master this tank, I would say. Again, I keep messing up the shots, and I am genuinely finding this tank challenging. I don't know. I think it could do with a little bit of love, because every time I find myself at my own tier, the speed doesn't really make it. It's garbage. It's heavy tank speed. It also has heavy tank mobility, but it does have that gun, and the gun is the standout on this tank. I feel like it could stand out just a little bit more. I do like it. I definitely do like the tank, and I find it extremely fun to play, but it is also extremely challenging. Maybe I should be using solid shot instead. Maybe I should just do a video on the Centurion Action 10 where I only use solid shot and see how that goes. Because I don't feel like the APDS really cuts it sometimes. Although, in saying that, whenever I'm up-tiered and fighting things like T-54s or, I guess, some of the, like the RU-251, the German M48s, Leopard 1 even sometimes, I feel like it does seem to show up there. But at the same time, like it is a good tank and I do enjoy it. It's good fun. It's also extremely rewarding because it is a little bit hard to play. But I think that is sort of British tanks in a nutshell. I might be wrong here and I might just be not looking at the other side properly. And if that is the case, then do let me know in the comments and do put forth some suggestions. I don't know. I also have a couple of other games that I can show you guys. If you'd like, I have an 8-kill game and I have a 6-kill game with a little bit of CAS as well. So if you'd like to see them, by all means, let me know in the comments. I might make a second video on the Action 10 just with the nice 8-kill game, although it's not quite 8 great kills. It is quite a relaxing game, and I think it is interesting. But for the most part, I think I would still buy the STR-V81 because it has that little X factor over the Centurion Action 10. It doesn't have those ATGMs, and so, you know, it still is very run-of-the-mill, very standard, and honestly not that amazing. But it is still fun, and it is still probably one of my most anticipated tanks, and I will play this a lot. But anyway, ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.